We engage in authentic conversations about our weekly entrepreneurial goals while exploring business, failures, success, and personal growth.
We're going to continue to work and get better at this, so thanks for tuning in.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Our vision will highlight a diversity of guests who are creatives, industry leaders, and individuals creating positive change within our communities. Join us on the Our Vision podcast.
Our shared journey to become better humans.
It's not only our vision, but it's your vision too.
FSU.
So today we have Cody Webb.
Hello. Good
What's
morning,
up, buddy?
ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you guys for actually inviting me and thinking
cool.
of me and bringing me on here, because it really does mean a lot. It kind of hopefully means that I'm doing something right in my professional career, that I'm getting these phone calls for sure.
You got a lot going on.
I do.
You have Axe and Shield, which I made a video for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
so
then
I have that apparel company.
Yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have numerous different things. I guess backing up to the start, my full-time job I have still, that I still can do every single day, 40 hours a week, is I'm a police officer. Kind of branching off of that is Axe and Shield, which is an apparel company that I created. I'm a canine handler at the sheriff's office. So in order to fund the canine program itself, it's completely donation based. There's no money that comes into that outside of money that I personally generate. So to help do that, I created a clothing company.
I got a question.
Uh-huh.
So it's donation based?
Everything.
I didn't know
There's
that.
no general fund at all for the canines. So it completely is based upon like big companies that will, make 5, 10, 15,000 donations.
Okay.
Or when we have like fundraisers, or we'll do raffles or dinners, or we do all kinds of just creative stuff to be able to keep money flowing into there.
Okay.
Because there's there's an expense to these dogs. They're thousands and thousands of dollars. There's, vet bills, there's equipment bills, there's training bills, there's all kinds of stuff that you have to constantly be paying for. So my thought was with Axe and Shield is that can almost be a passive income source for all of the local law enforcement agencies. A clothing company that stands for first responders, supporting them, what they do, and the money and the proceeds that come from that are going to get donated back to local law enforcement. So that's kind of the overall goal for it. And it's went really well. I'm actually going to be making my first donation to the Perkins Police Department sometime probably this month or next month, I'd say.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I never knew that. That's pretty cool.
It's kind of interesting. It's not something that people really think about, but it's a reality that that hit me once I got into that field and realized that I'm like, this money doesn't come from the actual department itself. It comes from...
It's not tax dollars. It's the public actually deciding.
Yeah. And a lot of it is just random people will walk into the sheriff's office or walk into a police department and just say, hey, I want this $500 to go to the canines. And that money is specifically used for that.
You brought up a good point. Like you didn't know that until you got involved. Isn't that true? Sometimes you get involved in something, you're like, I had no clue. And then it opens you up to all these other either possibilities or avenues or problems or what we have to do to solve.
Yeah. And I'm obviously, you can tell by my apparel, I'm not a clothing guru by any means. And I never thought I would be, creating and designing and doing all these things. But, I think and that's one thing I'm kind of excited to unpack with you guys today for sure, is that I know a lot of people, especially in this day and age, are going towards like financial freedom and creating their own businesses. It's just kind of like the world we live in now. And I think that, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think that a lot of these podcasts that I listen to kind of take the human element out of it. And I listen to a lot of like self-help, entrepreneurial stuff. I don't know if you guys have heard of one called Bigger Pockets, big time real estate.
That all the time.
It's super good. But I have a hard time connecting with it a lot of times because they always go for like the 1% guy. Like it'll say like, single dad goes from 0 units to 180 in 2.5 years.
Yeah, and you're like,
just
what?
Yeah. And I listen to it, and although it's fun and entertaining and it's super cool and you can look up to it and you can, tip your cap to it and you're like, this is awesome, but it's kind of hard to connect with sometimes. I have a hard time with it because I'm like, how did this guy just get?
Well, and I can agree. Brad and I've talked about
most people aren't building that fast.
No, I think it's unrealistic sometimes.
We talk about where we come from too. We come from a very working class family. My dad was a Ford worker. My mom was RN. So like even some of those topics and terms and things that you start to get into when you're looking at investing, like I haven't heard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the other thing too. So we just
don't come from that world.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's a very, very difficult thing. So I think that my approach to everything I've done so far has been super conservative and realistic and actionable, because I never did anything that was a huge risk. I have 2 kids. I have a fiance. So, and that's the thing that I was talking about, is I think the human element to a lot of these things that these big podcasts are doing, it's just taken out of it completely. It's like, I have to make sure there's bread on the table at home. Yeah. I can't just ditch my 9 to 5 and see if this might work. Like I have to have a ground floor, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. That might be fun to unpack today for sure.
I agree with you. Sometimes, it's step by step. You know, It's like when I quit my job recently, this was a decade for me working.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't like overnight. Brad and I had already started doing business together. I had already started doing photography on the side. So I had like a buffer, if that makes sense. It wasn't like just jumping and saying, oh, I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And some people can do that and they do well at it. I just don't think that's for everybody. I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, everyone's circumstance different. Some people are able to, live with their parents and push all their chips into one thing. And if it works out, and it's great. But, my life story didn't allow that to happen. So I kind of just built it from zero, with a goal being that like, I want to reach a point, and I'm not there yet, which is kind of cool. Maybe I'll be able to come back on the podcast in 5 years and be like, I'm financially free, which will be pretty cool.
But I like what you said. It's actionable. You have done some stuff up to this point.
Right.
So I think it's a progression.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we talk about success being, success isn't like you were saying about the people. It's not relatable sometimes, but like success doesn't have to be that you're making $10,000 a month.
Yeah,
success can be you have an extra $5,000 coming in a month. What does that mean for, providing for our kids, providing for transportation, providing for whatever entertainment or travel. So success is different for everybody, right, Cody?
Yeah. I mean, it's completely objective based upon whatever your definition of success is. Like it could be anything. For me, my goal by the end of all of this is to reach a point where I no longer have to trade time for money. That's like my overall goal for everything. So, and I kind of got to that point in the past couple of years mentally, where that's where my goal where I want to be at. I think, I kind of got really, really bored through, it kind of felt like I was living through Groundhog Day, I guess is a good way to put it. Going through like law enforcement, I moved up to this area. I was working. I did some really cool things. I got a dog. I got put on a SWAT team. I did all this stuff. And I was just like waking up, going to the gym, playing World of Warcraft for 8 hours a day, and then going to work and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I kind of just got to the point where I was just like, well, I need a side hustle. I need to do something to kind of just get some more revenue coming in. And I started realizing that a lot of the deputies that I worked with had side gigs, and a lot of other police officers, a lot of just people in general had something. And I was like, well, I don't have anything.
Yeah. What am I doing?
I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I started like, self-reflecting, and I was like, on this game I played what was called World of Warcraft, you can type in and it shows how long you've played. And I did that, and I was like, oh, that's not good for anybody.
So you're one of the World of Warcraft guys?
Yeah, it was really bad.
That's not a side hustle.
Anyone that listened to this that knows how much time you can put into that, I was like, that's not good for me. So
yeah, so value, purpose, doing things.
So I started basically realizing, a lot of these police officers were doing like woodworking, concrete. One guy makes cutting boards and does a really, really good job at it. There's all kinds of like little side gigs. So I started researching it myself, and that's pretty much where my start to all of this began. And I kind of just was Googling stuff. And as I was doing that, this is one of the top searches, or one of the top picks across the board of every search that I did was real estate. Like everything reverted back to that.
When you brought something up, so to you, success is, not trading your time for dollars, right? Mm-hmm. And so I look at that as like Brad and I talk about it, and I keep saying condensed money making, So when we start to add and subtract, we want to go beyond add and subtract. We want to do multiplication and division. Right?
Yeah.
So that's condensed money making to me. So things are happening when you're not present sometimes. We got to do work ahead of time. So a rental would be one of those things, real estate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, your appreciation, you have a check coming in from that person renting it, or it's a duplex, or it's an Airbnb, or it's, the wholesaling the property, or however you're doing it. And so there's a lot of different ways you can multiply and divide within real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
So
which is really cool. You can have a very not all of your eggs in one basket approach while staying within one entity of real estate, which is really cool. I have one rental right now, and I'm working with a business partner to buy some more. And it's just like you said, within my rental alone, not only am I cash flowing $600 a month on it, which is awesome. I mean, that is a lot of, after all expenses paid and everything, there's 600 of revenue coming into a bank account. Not only is that happening, but they're paying down your mortgage for you. And on top of that, you two both know what the real estate market is right now, and houses are appreciating at absolutely disgusting levels. So, I mean, you're making money on several fronts just in one property.
Right.
And it's crazy how fast that can multiply for sure.
So it seems to me, I don't know if you feel this way and if you can even speak to it, is when I look at what we looked at 7-8 months ago on properties, I'm seeing a slowdown in sales a little bit.
Yeah.
The amount of time it sits.
Yeah. So it is, it's coming from I'm actively selling $4 or $5-ish million worth of real estate a year. I just put a property in contract last night before I came here. So it's still extremely active. There's still a ton of buyers out there. I mean, the biggest issue across the board for almost any point in America right now is just inventory in general. Inventories are extremely low, meaning that how they kind of do the equation is if no more houses hit the market, how many days does one specific area have worth of houses? And some of these areas are less than a month, meaning that if no more houses hit the market, they'd have 30 days worth of inventory, worth of houses really for sale low before they're out and zero, which is like dangerously low.
So my daughter lived in Carolinas, was it, when they moved? See, Carolina to Virginia, because they're swapping. And they bought a house, young, put 3.5 down, held the house for 5 years, sold the house, walked away with $80,000. Those are those numbers don't usually happen.
Oh,
like
it's
that
crazy.
Quick,
it's
right?
scary. It is absolutely insane.
That's going to end at some point.
It has to. It's inevitable. I mean, it's just like any market. There's ebbs and flows. There's ups and downs. It'll be great, and then it'll be terrible, and then people will take advantage of the terrible market that have the cash flow sitting in banks, which is what a lot of savvy people do. And then eventually it'll hit that turning point where it'll start going back up, and we'll be in the same position we are now. So it just historically always done that. And it's crazy. I mean, I have listings that I've recently put up for sale, and I mean, they're all going, no one's doing inspections. They're all going for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 above what the asking price is. And I have people that aren't even going to the home anymore. They're just putting offers on the houses because there's that much competition. Yeah, it's almost scary, like that people are that desperate to try to find homes. There was some initial knockoff because interest rates now is starting to hike up some. So they're around this time last year, they were probably in the low 3s, maybe even somebody getting into the high 2s. Now they're at the point where they're like 4.5%. And allegedly by the end of this year, they might be up to like 6. So depending on how everything works, obviously the world's in a crazy place right now. So
still better than double digits in the 80s or whatever it was.
We're still historically low.
Yes.
But everyone kind of gets, they get scared about it, for
I think it's all what you're used to.
That's true too. Yeah. I mean, my entire adult life so far, interest rates, I don't think have been above 6%. I'm like, they go to 6 and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is catastrophic. What are we going to do? Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess, it's all how you look at it.
Are you ready to talk about the Webb group?
The Webb group?
Yeah. Did I say that right? That's what it's called, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going to be calling it. So, I mean, we have went forward with it, and we haven't announced it yet or anything like that, but my fiance is finishing up her real estate license, and we're gonna actually be forming a team together, and then we're gonna bring on another buyer's agent and have a small real estate group that we're gonna start trying to really, really push that, because I realized that, you know, I've developed some pretty decent skills in that platform over the past few years, and I've been very successful with it. Luckily, I've developed a lot of good relationships across the board throughout every branch of real estate, and I think it's something that I can go all in at, that like I said, I'm good at, and that's going to be our goal. So I'm hoping by the summer, by like May or June, we'll be kind of unveiling everything. So
where's that going to be based?
It'll be based out of Sandusky here.
Sandusky.
Yeah. So we're going to be branched off of the company that I currently work for, which is Russell Real Estate. So we're still going to be under their umbrella, but you can create your own team and be your own essentially realty group, and, you know, make your own decisions. And it just helps you. It helps scale. It's a big scaling move. A lot of people don't make that move that early in a career. I've only been doing real estate since late 2018. Most people wait until they've, you know, been 5-10 years in the business and have a massive sales volume and stuff. But I mean, in order to scale and grow at a level that I really want to, it's the right move.
Yeah, I didn't know much about it until Brad brought it up, and so I started reading, because you want to have a video done later about it. So I started researching like what it meant to have a group.
Yep.
And so what are the benefits of having a group, and why, you know, like those different skill sets. Because really, you're pulling together a team that has different skill sets that can move a buyer through the process efficiently, educated, and also have leads into the community to look for exactly what they want. Is kind of way I seen some of that.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's beneficial on a lot of different fronts. If you bring in, like me, I really want to move towards being specifically a listing agent. That's where a lot of the mega successful agents are at. And that's where the listings, especially in this market, when there's nothing for sale, you control the world when you're a listing agent. So the point for me of starting a team is going to be bringing in buyer's agents to facilitate all of my buyers, where I can focus on the most important thing, especially in this real estate market, which is listings. So for me, as the leader of the group, it's where should I and where do I need to spend the most of my time to be as efficient as possible and to create the most success as possible. And it's lead generating for sales and for listings. So for me, that's kind of the gear behind it. And not to mention, obviously, my fiance doing it. It's just going to be really cool in that team environment, working together. It'll be nice.
Right. Yeah.
For people getting their feet wet into real estate investing, what would you say would be a good starting point for that, for them to kind of get into that realm?
Yeah. So I guess it depends at what point you are in your life. I think that if you're established, you have a home, you have money in the bank, and you're just ready to buy an investment property, the most efficient thing you can do is probably actually either get a hold of a real estate agent and just sit down with them. Because if you call a real estate agent, they will answer and they will meet with you, and you can use them as a resource, and you don't have to pay them a dime. You can just say, hey, I want you to search for properties for me, and they'll do that for you. And there is no expectation at all. You're not going to get a bill in the mail from them. They're looking for your service and your deal. So if you just call them, they'll work with you constantly, and you can use them as an education source. I think, obviously there's books you can read. There's all kinds of things you can do. But as a step one, level one, just simply having a conversation with an agent is worth its weight in gold sometimes, especially if you can find a good one who will kind of put you under their wing and say, hey, this is a lender I know who will help you finance this deal if you don't have enough money to pay it in cash. And they can walk you through the steps of how to financially set this up. And then the agent themselves. And one important thing to think about when you're buying a property, you don't pay a real estate agent's commission. So if you're out there and you want to purchase a property, keep that in mind. The agent who is the buying agent on that gets paid through the person selling the home. So you as a buyer, you have no financial expectation to pay that agent. So you can just use them as a resource and really gain a lot of knowledge from somebody who's in the industry, seeing houses every single day. And You can even go to an actual brokerage like Russell Real Estate, Remax, Howard Hanna, any of these big brokerages, and just say, hey, do you have an agent that specifies in real estate investment, in apartments, in multifamilies, in whatever? And they could maybe lead you to somebody who has even more specialized.
That's a good point, Cody. I like that. Like, you can call them up and just
just have a conversation. Yeah,
it's that action part.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to ask if you don't know.
Exactly.
Because that's what they're there for. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And like I said, there's no monetary, expectation from them. They're not wanting money from you or anything. And that's how I got into real estate in general. That's how I got my license and became an agent. I contacted, my mom knew a random real estate agent, whatever. So I contacted him and I was like, hey, is the real estate world cool? Like, I had no idea. Nope. I was just a cop. I had no idea I was ever going to sell a house my entire life. And I just went into real estate because as I was searching for like my side hustle or whatever, if you Google real estate, it's a very quick sale. I mean, it's all like luxury and they're all in like Gucci suits and driving Lamborghinis. So it's an easy sell when you research it online.
Well, when you start poking around too, there's a lot of quiet money in real estate.
Yeah.
When you start looking at our leadership in this country, you start looking at different locations and you start to realize when you get on the auditor site and you start to realize you're looking up, oh, they own 10 houses or this company owns 20 houses. Like you said, the portfolio of 6, whatever it might be. And you don't even know these names. No. And they're turning. Then when you mathematically start to figure out, oh, well, wait a minute, they're pulling $200, $400, $600 off each home, plus the appreciation, plus this. And you're like, whoa, these guys are, it makes sense. To me, it makes sense. Longevity of it makes sense.
Yeah. And you're not even talking about tax write-offs and creating LLCs and putting all this money away. And there's a lot of income that can come from those things. And I think outside of insurance, I want to say real estate houses the most millionaires in America. Pretty positive. I looked up, I was reading an article about it. I think insurance is number one and real estate's number two, because just like you said, there's a lot of very quiet millionaires that would just, they'll go to a sheriff's sale or to a foreclosure. They'll buy a $25,000 house. They'll, have a credit card. And
I won't drop his name, but I was having friends of the family stop by to see my parents, and I know he's a millionaire off. So I asked, he's like in his 90s. And so I was able to talk to him a little bit this week. And I asked him, because in my 20s, I didn't know what to ask him. I'm almost 50 now. I know what to ask him. Like, I just didn't know,
Yep.
And he had a small, his first deal was like 46 slots.
Wow.
And I said to him, like, how did that work out for you? He goes, well, he said, it's weird. At first you start and it's like, you can squirrel away 15,000 and 30,000. And then it just snowballs. And now, he's got places in Maine and other places. And I'm like, okay, but as a kid, you see that little place and you have no clue of what leverage is going on with something like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it at least. Yeah. Then, so
yeah, it's crazy to see what some of these people develop over the years, because it really is a snowball and a progression. And it's a big barrier to entry because it takes a lot of guts to just put that much money forward. And I still haven't even done it. The rental I have right now was a house that I bought for myself years ago.
Yeah, but you're smart enough to hold on to it. And
I held on to it because I saw the value. I could have sold it and made probably $40,000 to $50,000 on it and just said, hey, that's cool, and went and bought a car or like whatever.
10 years it's rusted out.
And then it's gone. But I kept it, and I realized back when interest rates were a little bit cheaper, if I just refinance this with how low it is, with how low my mortgage is, I think my payment now is like $588 or something like that. And it rents out for $1,200 a month. And I was getting yelled at by friends that I was charging so little for the rent. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was going to charge like $900 because I thought it was like robbery. And people are just jonesing to get rentals right now.
When we had to move somebody out of this property, do you remember how many applicants she said down the road here in Sandusky there was? Was it like
hundreds?
160 within like a very short period of time when something came up for them. We're like 160. Yeah. That shows you right.
Who was
there,
that?
The one that was living here.
Oh, when she was searching.
She was trying to search, and she said
crazy.
160 people like she was up against to get a place.
And we're not in a high population area. This isn't Columbus. This isn't Miami. We are in rural Ohio. So it's like, if it's that bad here, it's got to be that bad.
Cody, wouldn't it be
else.
exciting though to take one of these empty lots and build on? That's what I want.
Yeah,
I mean, like so many, the land bank. You know, can you imagine buying a thing and going up? You know, I know we have a, you have to make a variance to go up higher, but it wouldn't it be nice to have build a brand new quad?
It would
be
incredible. I mean, there's somebody who just did it downtown on Water Street.
Is that what's going on there?
Yeah, they're rebuilding everything.
Yeah,
there's a guy who just built a bunch of, I don't know if they're condos or single families on the eastern side of Water Street. I think they finished them. They're like $500,000-$600,000 properties now.
Yeah, like blue and
I think so.
The townhouse kind of up here properties.
Yeah, they're insane. I mean, and if you have that, I mean, those are real deal real estate moguls. But
my point to you is though, guys, is that we can build relationships where partnerships like that can happen over time. That's no different than what they're doing.
No, you can't.
Maybe they're 20 years ahead of us. Maybe they're 15 years ahead of us. Maybe, but I think you can build strong relationships because that's really what's going on. When you look at these big buildings that are being done, they're pulling in investment groups to do that.
And I have a funny story that I had a conversation with an agent yesterday about this, about just being in the right place and knowing the right people and doing these things. I went and looked at an investment property yesterday with my partner, and I was talking to the agent, and it was part of the portfolio that I was talking to you about, that they have 54 homes to sell, that they bought this massive portfolio, and they only do multifamily residences. So this portfolio they purchased has a bunch of apartment buildings, and they loved that, but all of these homes that came with the portfolio, they're dumping. They're getting rid of them. They want nothing to do with it. These are a bunch of investors from Colorado and Florida.
They're cashing out.
Yeah. And the agent who has all these listings works out of my office, and God bless her soul. And I have to say, I'm a little bit jealous of it. She happened to walk into an estate sale I don't know if it was weeks or months or last year. I don't know when it was, but she walked into an estate sale, probably to buy a bed frame or something random. You know what I mean? Just
a dresser
random
for $15.
She sparked up a conversation with the guy who was running the estate sale. And she was like, "What's the deal with this house?" And he goes, "Well, it's going to be put up on the market as soon as the estate sale's done." And she goes, "Well, hey, I'm a real estate agent, and I actually like this house, and I think I have a buyer who is who's interested in it." And she goes, well, the guy who was running the estate sale says, "Oh, well, do you just want the listing then? If you want it," gives it. You got a business card? Absolutely, I do. Here you go. A couple of days later, she gets the listing. It sells, no problem. Everything's cool. She vaguely keeps in contact with him because he is part of the company that built or purchased that whole portfolio. Right, yeah. He's in that group. So over the course of a couple months, she's sending him just random multifamily listings and stuff, just kind of being polite, being nice. And all of a sudden, this is another probably 6 months down the road, she gets a phone call from this group's secretary, and she just goes, "Hey, do you want 54 listings in Sandusky, Ohio to sell houses?"
"Yes, I do."
Boom, just like that, 54 listings.
That's why consistently having some integrity, follow through, those all things that you're saying, right?
Yeah.
You have, this is why we're in the game of like moving forward in life and doing something on the side or moving forward. You have to be looking for something, right?
Yeah,
you have to be
always
active and engaged and being personable and trying to figure this out.
Part of networking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It's just, and that's one thing I do the training for all the new agents in my office. And that's one thing that I preach to them is the two most important things you can focus on. There's two words, and I've broken it down to this, is discipline and resilience. It's the two most important things in real estate. Is discipline, is creating what we said kind of earlier, an actionable plan that you will consistently do. And the resilience is to fight through the BS and the days you don't want to do it and all that, to keep pushing forward and doing those things. Because could that lady who got all those listings had said, "Nah, I don't want to go to an estate sale. I just want to drink coffee and chill at home"? Absolutely. But what did she do? She went there, had a conversation.
And was engaged.
Yeah, she could have went to that and
not talk.
I don't want to say selfish, but just did what she, bought something that she wanted to buy and said, "Have a good day." But no, she went out of her way to go, "Hey, I have a client in mind. I'm going to have a conversation with this person."
Recognizing opportunity sometimes.
Yeah,
when we're not doing things or not being actionable, sometimes it's hard to recognize action.
100%.
What the opportunity is. And we talked about this earlier too, right? It's like when you get involved in something, you're like, "Oh, wait a minute. That I didn't even know that existed." And then you start asking more questions and you find yourself down the rabbit hole of exploration. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see where things can manifest when you're just giving general effort all of the time to whatever your craft is. And it doesn't have to be real estate. I mean, I do a lot of other things too. Like I said, I have an apparel company where if you just put the effort in, eventually, could be 1 year, could be 10, you're going to find success somewhere.
Well, we talk a little bit about balance too. And you kind of alluded to this, that you were going back and forth to work. And there's nothing wrong with what we do. I mean, we need police officers, right? We need we need a bunch of people doing different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes when you feel like you need more, like finding that balance. So finding balance for you was also creating a side hustle. But beyond what we do for financial gain too, is like, what do we do for balance? Like, what are you into besides real estate, Cody? Like, is there anything, like, you're into mountain biking in the summer? I'm into sitting at the beach and watching sunsets every day. You know what I mean? It's whatever. Some people sit in front of their TV or whatever they're doing, but what's something that you do for balance? Because what you do is stressful. Like, I could not do your job.
Yeah. I mean, so that is something that it's hard to find, and I don't think I've found it yet, because I think sometimes it's okay to not have balance for short periods of time when you're really trying to hyper focus on something. And the past couple of years, I've been hyper focusing on my business.
I understand that.
It's something that, it will affect relationships. Some people will stop talking to you when you are not developing relationships with those people and having that balance. However, I still do a lot of things on the side, a lot of family time, a lot of time with the kids. I'm a big traveling guy. So my fiance and I really, really like to just, even on my days off of work from the sheriff's office, even if it's like a 48-hour thing, I'll just go buy a random hotel somewhere in Columbus.
Nice. Yeah.
We'll just go down there and
dinner out, see something new.
Yep. Go see something new. What's a cool thing that's down here? There's a place we went to not too long ago called Otherworld. I don't know if you guys it's just really visual art room, I guess, is what you can do. And you traverse through it, and you have to crawl through random holes in the. It's really weird. It's very hands on. It's real. I mean, I can imagine some people go there with some mushrooms and have a really, really good time.
Yeah, I would love to imagine.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. So it's down in Columbus, and we took the kids down there, and they really
say it one more time.
Otherworld. Yeah, I'm pretty positive that's what it's called. If there's a couple of them around, I think the only one in Ohio is in Columbus, and it's pretty cool. It's very, very, very
shows
vibey.
You people want experiences when you find stuff like that. Humans want experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They want to see something new.
Exactly.
They really and that's the thing we're talking about, is that balance. Like, if you feel like you're doing the same thing every day, there's millions of things to do on this planet. Stop doing the same thing every day if you're feeling that way. I think it's one of the reasons why people are so depressed sometimes, is that they're not having new experiences.
Absolutely. So and sometimes you don't even realize it, and it could be years before you realize it. I don't know if I just have a different ticker that it hit me, but it only took me a couple of years. But I mean, it took me from 24 to 27 to realize okay, I'm just wasting my time here. I'm just waking up, going to the gym, coming back home, playing video games, wasting my time, wasting my life away. And that's actually a really big regret I have, is wasting so much time in my 20s, because I'm just thinking that, everything's cumulative. And if I would have started, and that's probably the same to a lot of people. And as long as you start and move forward, but I'm just thinking man, if I would have done this 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I imagine what my portfolio would be today already, so.
But it's never too late,
No, absolutely.
But I have a lot of that regret too, but at least we started at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. What matters is that you have found a plan and you're executing on it, and it doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, there's people that get into the real estate game after they retire and they get a big fat check, and they're like, hey, I want to buy a couple of rentals for passive income just to live on. And people do that all the time.
But you're looking at generational wealth. So the difference between, and there's nothing wrong with working a job and put, I do it today. If I was going to go work at a gas station, I would try to do it well. I want to keep my job. I want my paycheck. I'm going to try to make the best of the situation. And there's nothing wrong with it. I've done that. But what we're talking about and what you're talking about is building generational wealth. So those properties are going to live long after you, right? These aren't going to fall down. We're going to take care of them. They're investments. We're not going to just because the other thing we saw in this town, and I don't know if you come across it, and I don't know if you can speak, you might not be able to speak to this, but one of the things I noticed is that the properties were run down. Mm-hmm. So somebody would own this house from Florida, pull $17,000 out of it, or a year, and then not put anything back into it for 7 years.
Yeah,
you can look at it on the audit site. You can see when they bought it. You can see when the gutters are falling. You can see that the windows haven't been swapped out. People are putting plastic over it. And I think to myself, I can do that better.
Yeah. And it speaks volumes to the experience you're going to have in the investment world. So my personal rental unit I have right now is a very well kept, nice home in a great neighborhood, ceramic tile floors. It's got carpet, which I know that's not the greatest thing, but I'm just saying, and it's very nice high-end carpet. Everything's new in that house, and you will get a higher return. You'll get higher rentals, rent in general, and then you'll get a different type of people that will come in there and rent off of you, because when you get above the $1,000 mark, usually it's blue collar workers with just a bad credit score or something like that. And that's what I look for. I look for people that have good jobs, consistent jobs, are local, and they make enough money. However, maybe they have student loan debt that they can't get approved for a house or just something like that. Like prime example, I have the tenants in mine are incredible. Not only do they pay on time every single month without question, but they don't, if something goes wrong in the house, they just take care of it. Even though they could be getting a hold of me, they don't. They had the inside of the house professionally painted. And they probably added, by doing that, thousands of dollars to the equity in my own home, just because you've taken the time to treat the properties right. And you get a different type of people in there that will take care of where they live versus, like you said, having a property, letting it run down to nothing, having boards up on the windows and just
plastic over the window, black garbage bag. And when we look at this, and I think to myself, this is, and they're trying to cash out now.
Showers in front of windows.
Oh shit, we seen
built in front of windows
with insulation showing from the outside. Like how do you do a job? To me, like that's not.
It's not what
psychologically, it's not good for the people living there. It's not good for your investment property.
Yeah, and it's just silly. I don't know about you, but I want to be able to sleep at night. I want to be able to know that this house isn't going to possibly burn down at any point in time. Yeah. I want to have a true, genuine passive income. Another case in point to my renters, there was a screw up with the trash there, so I pay for the water and the trash at the rental of mine, and for some reason they took the can away. Even though I pay for the service for the whole year, the company came and took the can away, and I didn't even know. And I happened to drive by it because my babysitter lives on that road, and I saw a different company's can there. So I was like,
why would they do that?
I'm like, hey,
I pay for all this, so why are you paying for something else?
Hey, I paid for it. She's like, no, 3 months ago they came and took it, so we just got our own trash.
Double pay, and then they're paying for something.
And so I called the company back, and they're like, oh, you paid for the whole year. We're sorry. And they brought it back out there. But long story short of it is that's the type of renters I have in there, is they don't even ask questions for it.
Yeah, they just took care of their own responsibilities, right?
They treat that house like it's their own. And when you really treat the house with respect and you upkeep it and you keep it in good shape, those are the type of people that you're going to get.
Here's a little simple piece of advice, and tell me your thoughts on this. Like for us, we wanted to be ahead of the game before we even got into it. We didn't know what we were getting into because Joe and I both had never owned our own place.
Sure.
It was all rental properties that we would rent. Mm-hmm. And it was important to make sure that we had steady income for 2 years, having enough money in the bank, having our credit scores at the right score,
Right.
I think that's is there anything else you would add to that for people to kind of get ahead of getting into property investments?
Sure. So you don't have to be perfect. You don't. So I don't want people to be scared if their credit score is not 800, if they don't have $50,000, $60,000 of liquid cash in their bank, because that's the amazing thing about real estate. If you go to a bank and you have a genuine, honest conversation with a lot of these lenders, they'll tell you, you just need A, B, C, D, and you can get yourself a house. And house hacking is a very popular thing that for any younger, not even necessarily younger, but anyone who wants to get investing and doesn't have that picture perfect situation, it's a great way to do it. This house we're in, exactly. You can buy a duplex, you can live in part of it. You can sometimes, and depending on what city you're in, especially Sandusky right here, they do a program where they will give out cash to beautify their city, and it's a grant. They give it to you, and here's some money, and you can renovate the property with a grant from the city that comes from the state, and you're fixing up a property.
They have a front like a beautification for the front of the homes, so the money can be spent. They also have a grant or money that can match somehow for renovation. So if you're doing X amount inside, they can add like low interest loans or something. There's some kind of program in that. I don't want to speak too much, but I kind of read about that. So I think that's kind of what
it exists. Yeah. And there's a lot of no money down loans that exist. There's a lot of different ways to get into this world. You just have to be willing to gain the knowledge to make the decision. Like that's like the most important thing is stepping out there, having conversations with people that are in this direct business, if this is what you want to get into, and learning what moves to make. And that's all it is.
I'm not embarrassed where I come from. So I'm going to say this right now. So we're talking about student loans. We brought that up. So I got buried in student loans. The crash happened. I came back from West Palm Beach. I came back to town. Everything was like, Ford Motor Company was shutting down. Right? That was where we were at, right? Yeah. So I hid out in college. That's how I met Brad. Buried myself in loans, blah, 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 blah. Got out. So we go to do this deal, right? And so I do an income-based repayment plan on my student loans right now. That helps you too with getting a loan for a home. So an income-based student loan, right, will help you. They calculate that at a different percentage for the amortization of your loan. So if you're doing a full loan and you're paying that back and your debt to income ratio is too high, then you like you're saying, you might not be able to qualify for the loan. We were talking about that a little bit. But if you're doing an income base, they can do it at a different percentage. So it's really interesting. So that helped. And I got to tell you, I was teaching kids with autism and I was bringing home $24,000.
Yeah. And it's like,
and I still was able to get in. Like I wasn't doing the job for the money. I was doing it because it had purpose. Right?
Sure, absolutely.
And so that was interesting to me. It's like so I guess my point is find out, you have to know where you're at. So even if the answer is no, when you go to check out the loan or what's going on, at least you know where you're at and you know what problem you have to solve.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's kind of what we did when we were moving through this. So we just kept solving the problem and then we figured that out. And now we're looking at the next one. So you're just solving problems, I think.
Yeah, that's all it is.
And it was different for me, like being a business owner and self-employed. I had to show more income on a monthly basis than he did.
Yep. Yeah, because it's all 1099, and the same thing with my real estate. I was, when I bought a house not too long ago, I was only allowed to use a certain percentage of it because if you don't, for especially 1099 people that own their own companies and everything, you have to have so many years worth of income, and they'll take an average based on those to dictate what your debt to income ratio is.
It's like 75%.
So it's something along those lines. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah. So the long story short is making the first move. And a lot of people will privately contact me and just say, hey, I don't have a great credit score. Hey, I don't have this. And the best advice I can give them is what you said, is go to a lender, get a pre-approval, and they'll say, not looking good right now.
But they'll tell you why.
If you pay off this Victoria's Secret credit card and you pay off this Target credit card and you consolidate your student loans all into one loan. Yeah, whatever the lender, tells you, they
want to lend that money to you.
Oh, the bank wants to, they want to lend you money yesterday because they're making, the scary part is if you look at an amortized loan, if you actually pay it, you're paying triple or quadruple what the house is worth.
Exactly. So let's go back, or whatever that number is. So that's the beauty of real estate. When this unit and your rental, when you moved out of it and rented it, your house, that became an asset. It's kind of an asset when you're living it, but not as much. If you're going to live in it for 30 years, you're paying that amortization.
Right.
It's really
not really an asset at that point.
I mean, in my opinion, but
yeah,
it is shelter, it's home, it's security.
Right.
But as soon as you moved out and rented that became an asset.
Yeah, immediately.
This is an asset because I'm not paying for that amortization, that interest.
Yeah, somebody else is paying for it.
Somebody else. I mean, yeah, I'm losing out every day that the house isn't paid off, but I'm not really losing out because somebody else's money and time is going to pay that off.
Exactly.
And I think that's important too for people to realize is that with investing like that, that's the difference between owning a home and being able to run a place out. Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah, it's huge. And the most important thing is making the move on the very first property, because in your guys' situation, if you have a duplex that you bought and you're fixing up, you can actually, and say I'm just going to make up numbers, say you paid $50,000 for it and you fix it up and now it's worth $100,000 for it. You can get a home equity line of credit on this house. And now you can go buy another house with it, a whole nother one, and create that and keep on doing the same exact thing over and over and over again. And that kind of goes back to our point of these quiet millionaires. These guys are doing these type of things once, twice a year for 20 years. And then before you know it, they've got 60, 70, 120, and then they're on Bigger Pockets podcast, you know what I mean? And they have this massive portfolio and they're making just insane amounts of money. And then when you get to that point, you can purchase property management. You can purchase all of these entities that will take care of your portfolio for you. And it'll return better than a 401k does. It's insane.
I can see that.
One of, if not the best investment you can make,
absolutely,
in my opinion.
Well, I mean, the tax law in general is written and incentivized to do this kind of stuff. Cities why do you think they give you grants every single year? And they keep on raising it. When they first started, it was only, I want to say it was like $170,000 or $80,000, and now it's above $300K per year. They're pushing for this, and they're knocking homes down constantly. And the city of Sandusky, Ohio specifically, for a while there, they were like in the 70% range of rented units. Like this whole city was basically rentals, and it drives down property taxes. It increases crime rate, statistically speaking, everything. So everything in any rule book is written for investors and people to invest in the real estate because it just makes a city better. It increases taxes. It increases the value of homes inside the city. It just does nothing but positive things. And that's why it's so incentivized. So I almost think it's just silly to not get involved in it at a certain point.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible.
Well, let's get back. I want to get back to your service though to community a little bit too, beyond the real estate stuff. If that's okay, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I really admire because I know how difficult your job can be too, your day to day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the changes that we've gone through over the last 2, 3, 4 years, and I don't want to get too heavy into politics and all that. Sure. But I know that exists, and I know I have other friends that are detectives and met over the years, and I know some of that's weighing on people, and I know that's making a difference on how we're able to do our jobs in the community and how we think. So my question to you is, like, do you see yourself eventually fading out of being a sheriff someday, or maybe you'll go, I don't know how that would work for you. Is that something right now you still are? I mean, you're of course committed. Yeah. You don't just wake up and go do that job unless you're not.
Right.
So,
right.
And there's got to be some excitement to that camaraderie and stuff.
There is. I mean, I didn't get into this career field because I just felt like it. If to pay the bills, if I wanted to do that, I could go, deliver mail and not, risk very much harm outside of maybe being bit by a dog or something. But yeah, I mean, I got into it. To be honest, the main reason why I got into it is because I was pretty heavy into sports in high school. And there was a big camaraderie with teammates, right? And that was a really cool thing that I found within sports. And the main driving force for law enforcement was, hey, all of these guys, when I went and did some ride-alongs and stuff, are closer and tighter than any other job I looked at, bar none. These guys are very close to each other. Like, it's very difficult to find a job that you will go get in a gunfight with someone and risk your life for the buddy next to you.
And we see that with firemen. We see that with
same
police.
concept.
We see that.
Anything in the public sector, military, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of, and military was going to be one of the routes, but I just didn't really have a lot of interest in it. So that was a big driving force for me to get into law enforcement, and it holds true. I mean, a lot of people I work with, and not even within my agency, it's a very, very, very tight-knit family. And it's because a lot of the stresses you go through. You see some very, very interesting stuff. It's, there's always the famous line of, it's a front row ticket to the craziest ride you'll ever experience.
Yeah, you're seeing people at the worst sometimes.
Yeah, always. I mean, your 9 to 5 is, you're seeing death constantly. You're seeing, people lose their loved ones, and you're having to manage those emotions in other people to complete a goal, whether or not that is, getting somebody to a hospital, getting somebody to jail. There's a lot of aspects of that job.
And that's the part I think I'm talking about. And I don't know how to speak to that because you live it. I don't, you know what I mean? But that intensity of seeing people in that raw emotion and hardship and things that are going on in their lives. And I think that's the part we forget sometimes behind the badge.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that on some level.
Yeah, it is. There's definitely a lot that comes with it. And it's a lot of decisions within that job you have to make that are very difficult to make because you're making them within a very small scope. And it's a very quick, hey, I have this guy, he's standing in front of me, he's drunk, he's this, he's that, he's got a knife in his hand, he's got, there's a lot of things.
I have 2 children at home.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too. And to go back to your original question of me phasing out of it, I think eventually, yes, I will, just because of the family aspect. And it's not even, I would probably go through the entire career if I didn't have kids or a family, but I'm like, I've got 2 daughters. Like, what happens if I go to work one day and now I'm not walking them down an aisle one day? And I you kind of reach a point in your life where you think about those things. Did I think about those things even a year ago? I don't think so. I really didn't. Did I think about them 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when I was in my young 20s and I was still in the honeymoon phase of law enforcement? Because there is a honeymoon phase when you're in a car and you're driving lights and sirens and you're going fast and you're like, this is the coolest thing ever. And you'll have that. And for some people, it lasts 25 years. Some people, it lasts 2 or 3 years. Everyone's kind of different.
That's the evolution of us as people. We're constantly changing and evolving. And we talked a little bit about that before the camera turned on. Yeah,
we did. And I've had an evolution in my mind where I kind of think differently. In this job, it's getting more inherently dangerous, statistically speaking. There's been more and more police officers killed in the line of duty year over year for quite a while now. So it's getting kind of alarming. And it's getting close to home. It's happened here in Sandusky, Ohio before. There's been a lot of very bad things and violent things, and it makes you think about just the long term of life. It's like, do I want to risk this all for my family, for my, and for me, ever since I had kids, my mind's completely changed. I never thought I would be, and I didn't even know I wanted to have kids, but when it happened, you change a lot. Significantly. So yeah, I think the answer to the question, eventually I am looking probably to phase out. And it's specifically for my kids and my family, just the longevity of life. And plus, from the financial side of it, the biggest issue is the reason why most people stay in jobs like this is for pensions and retirements and whatnot. And right now the pensions are getting obliterated. It's really bad to the point where they're getting rid of healthcare. I mean, that's a huge reason why most people stay in these jobs that have other high paying, side jobs, is because, it has healthcare. It has healthcare. Well, a lot of these guys that retire, they're 50, 55, 60 years old. Within a year and a half, I'll see them working back at the sheriff's office full time as a new deputy because they can't afford life insurance or health insurance. Yeah. So it's like,
my father's Ford Motor Company health insurance was better than my mother's nursing. She was a nurse for over 40 years.
Yeah.
Which is like, when you think about that in our country, that's just silly. Like, if you work in the medical industry, the Ford Motor Company workers insurance should not be better than the nursing.
You at face value, you wouldn't think that.
That's ridiculous, right?
You wouldn't think it at all. So it's a big kind of coming to Jesus moment you kind of have when it's like, is all of this time, is this 25, 35, 40 years you invest on a full-time basis away from your family, kids, everything, worth that pension, that money you get per month, that health insurance, etc. And with the way it keeps getting, less and less and less every year, and it's to the point where, like we were talking earlier, I could develop a retirement plan through residential real estate and rentals that'll outplay and outpay any 401k, any pension plan, anything. I mean, with not that much real estate, when you really break down how much money you spend in the month and how much real estate you need to get that revenue, it's not that much.
With all that being said, I would say that's probably a big reason why you started Axe and Shield, to give back to first responders, going back to your experience being a sheriff's deputy.
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk more about Axe and Shield and what you're doing, what you're offering to people, and how you're taking that and giving back?
Yeah. So Axe and Shield is 100% nonprofit. There's no one that's putting a single penny in their pocket. I've lost tens of thousands of dollars on it of my personal money that I've made from real estate just to fund this and keep it going. So there, if anything, it's negative. And basically the whole point of that is to just try to supply first responders with any and everything they need on a daily basis to do their job. Because obviously, a lot of defunding the police things are happening right now, and it kind of gets scary. And then when the financial, crisis is sort of kind of ish hitting, and oil prices are currently going up, all of these things hit all to a local level, and they'll affect how much money that a sheriff's office will get every single year. They'll give them less money to operate, their business on. So that company specifically for Axe and Shield, it just exists for one reason: to fund programs that are not funded through the general money that comes through like any law enforcement entity. So it's not specifically catered to canines, even though I've got, it's kind of a bias for it. And that's a big one because it's a massive expense that a police department has. And it's a very, very important asset. We use those dogs daily, usually, to be honest. So it's a big one. However, there's drug interdiction programs that exist that, we will donate to. There are within like fire departments, if they come to me and they say, hey, we have a diving team, but we just don't have enough money to allocate funds to this. But hey, we live on a lake. We need, we need this, any program.
Water rescue. And all that,
that stuff happens all the time on Lake Erie, way more than you think. And so any program just in general that struggles to maintain what they need to operate for the community, that's what we'll donate to. And it's awesome. Super important.
And we'll make sure that's in the links for your site and how they can get to that. And then the apparel that we're talking about, if I remember, it was t-shirts.
So t-shirts. We're at the bottom of the hour too, guys. So if you want to tell people where they can find you for Axe and Shield and real estate.
Yeah. So shameless plug. So axeandshield.com, AXN Shield. So axeandshield.com. You can go on there. The site's live. You can browse around. There's hats, there's t-shirts, there's sweatshirts, there's crew necks, there's all kinds of stuff. And we're in development right now for more apparel that's going to be released. And eventually that's what we want to do is every probably 2 to 3 times a year, just have a new launch, a new release of new clothes. So everything you see is going to be limited edition. When it's gone, it's gone. Maybe every once in a while bring one back or something like that, but on to the next one. And that's kind of how we've developed things, and it's went really well so far.
Is there anybody helping you with the designs that we could speak about? Give them.
You're doing it? I'm doing it. Right. I mean, I have some graphic designers who I've helped. Shout out Alex Wheeler, God bless her. That I've kind of along the way gotten help from. You've obviously helped me tremendously with making videos and all kinds of media to try to push that stuff. But no, it's kind of a one-man band. Everything from sourcing the product itself, which I keep everything is in Ohio. The artwork and everything. Yeah. The shirts were purchased from Catawba, Ohio. They were printed in Columbus, Ohio, and then they came back up here and they're getting sold here. So everything's local. That's kind of my main driving point to all of it. Like, it's all to help small businesses here, and all these small businesses are going to be supporting when the people purchase the shirts, first responders. So everything is staying within the state.
Nice.
Which is really cool.
That is cool.
And to wrap this up, from an entrepreneur's mindset, what would be, from your perspective, the most important piece of advice you'd give to others that are pursuing different entrepreneurial endeavors?
I think the most important thing I would say is to find your why is a huge reason. And I know it's so cliche, and I hate saying it, but I mean, without a driving force behind, what you want to do, you're going to eventually give up on it. And mine is the realization of like, hey, we're not on this earth forever, and it goes faster than you think. And that's something that recently has hit my mind a lot. And that was why, that's my financial goal, is to reach a point where I don't have to trade my time for money. That's my driving force. So finding your driving force is huge, because if you have that will give you, a lot of discipline to figure out what you want to do. It doesn't have to be real estate. It could be cutting boards. It can be concrete work. It can be selling t-shirts. There's a lot of ways to gain financial freedom. But having a big driving force is a huge, huge thing.
Great question, brother. And one of our driving force for having you here today is that there's a lot of things we don't know, right? So when we have time to sit with somebody like yourself and hear where you're at, it gives us a different perspective. So one of the driving force for me is, whether I'm 50 or whether you're 28 or somebody's 20 or 70, there's something to be gained by somebody that's moving forward and doing something.
Absolutely.
So I'm grateful that you came today to talk to us, and we got to listen to you. And if there's anything we can do in the future to help you, please let us know, because we're excited to see people move on. Because the better that you do, the better we do. And that's kind of the thing in society, right? The better people are, the better they're moving forward. It's better for all of us.
Absolutely.
So we're very grateful that you took time to come here today.
Yep.
And one more time, where can people find you?
ActionShield.com. AXNShield.com.
Thanks, Cody.
Yep,
Thanks for joining us.
you.
Appreciate it.
What do you think? That's pretty
Not too bad.